Okay. Better not forget the Bible. Okay, are we on?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, I've got a lot to say tonight, so I'm going to go straight into it. I normally sort of mumble on a bit, and say some things I don't need to say, but I'm going to go straight on by reading to you from Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, and it's the story of the prodigal son, which is probably one of the most well-known stories in the New Testament. So it's Luke 15, verse 11 and onwards. And it says, a certain man had two sons, and the younger said to the father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided them his living. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, took his journey into a far country, and wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a famine, a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husks that the swine did eat, but no man gave him any. And then when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven first, and then before you. I am no more worthy to be called your son. Make me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight. I am no more worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf and kill it. Let us eat and be merry. For my son was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. So I'm just going to finish there because it goes on to talk about the elder brother wasn't very happy. But we'll just leave him for now. But yeah, the story of the prodigal son. He's the youngest son. In a family, you'll often get two brothers. And when you're getting introduced to them, the parent might say, oh, this is Johnny, this is Jack, or Fred, or whatever his name is. They're very different. I don't know if you've had that experience, or you've knew someone and said, oh, that son is completely different to the other one. This one's noisy, he's arrogant, he's going to do this and do that. And the other one's like a mouse. Where is he? Oh, he's in the bedroom, he's reading, he's studying. Completely different. And these two sons seem to be like that. The young one was like, I've had enough of this farm. I've worked on this farm for years. And I'm hearing rumours that you can go out there to this distant city, and if you've got a few bob in your pocket, you can get yourself a nice-looking girlfriend, or two. So he goes to his dad and says, look, the inheritance which is mine, I want to take it because it's mine. And the father says, yes, it's yours, so there's your money. There wasn't any bank accounts in them days, so I don't know if it was like in a rucksack or what, but off he went with the money. And often when people are going to do things that they're ashamed of, they like to go where nobody knows them, like to a distant city. So Newcastle's a party city, and you get people coming to it from all over the country, and they probably wouldn't carry on the way they do in their own town, because people would see them, but they go, oh, we'll go up to Newcastle, nobody knows us. So he goes up there, and he spends all the money, because as you might know from your experience in life, when you've got money, it attracts friends. You've got money and everyone's like, oh, like I've always been an admirer of you. Do you want to get the drinks in? Yeah, But then when the money goes, nobody wants to know you. You're ringing them up and they're saying, oh, here, you spent all your money. Oh, yeah. The phone's gone. They don't want to know you. So that's what happened to this guy. He spent all the money, whether it was on prostitutes or not. It's sort of preacher's license. The older brother sort of hints in it later on. He spent the money on harlots. Whether he did or not, we don't know. But he begins to be in want. And he gets a job feeding pigs. But he wasn't getting fed. And he's in the field with the pigs. The pigs must have thought it was strange. Because the pigs are like saying, well, this human being's feeding me, but like he's got nothing to eat himself. And one day he just comes to his senses and he just says, you know, if I go home, even if I'm not treated like a son, even if I'm a servant, I'll have a warm bed, I'll have food, I'll have everything I've got. And he decides to go home. So the Dougie version of it is that every day that he's been away, his dad's been looking at the upper window for his son who he loves. And his wife's probably saying, oh, come away from that window. You'll upset yourself. And he's like, no, I'm all right, you know. And then one day she'll say, oh, you're not going back to that window again. He's gone, you know, we might never see him again. But his heart is for the son that he's missing. So one day he's up there looking, and he's sitting, hold on a minute, who's this in the distance? Guys went a bit skinnier because he wasn't getting his mother's 3 meals a day, you know. And he's got a little goatee beard. And is that him? He's limping. Doesn't look like he's got any shoes on. Goodness me, it's him. And he goes running out. And the son sees the dad and goes, oh no, how am I going to explain myself? Look at this, I've got no shoes on. I'm skinny, I've got this little goatee beard. I've got no money. Haven't got a nut. And he's like, oh, Dad, I'm happy enough. And he's like, no, come here. I missed you. I love you. And the son is and they have a big party because he was lost and then he's found. It's a bit like these stories when a child goes missing or a teenager goes missing and you're listening for the news. Is it going to be they found a body, or is it going to be the missing person safe and well? So if it's safe and well, you imagine them having a little party for that one that was lost. But if it's a body, there's just complete grief. And you know, God is like that with us. We tend to think that when we're doing things that are not godly, that he's looking down and we're snarling. But I believe that there's times when God's crying because he sees the mess that we're in and he knows it's going to make us unhappy. And he doesn't want us to be unhappy because he loves us and he wants the best for us. So maybe this evening, just for some people, is you need to get a different perspective of God, that he is a God of love. I mean, there is a hell on Judgment Day. People who don't believe will go to hell forever. But anybody who ends up in hell sends themselves there because the message is all around the world. It's not like a secret. Most people know the gospel, and there's probably a few tribes and dialects that have never heard the gospel fully, but people are even reaching out to them. But basically, God is a God of love. Now, when I was growing up, I had a father who had been a leading airman in the Royal Navy, and he was a very disciplined person. So everything had to be in place, and you had to be in place. So you weren't meant to be naughty. So if you were naughty, the leather belt came out. And he would look at me mother, and she would sort of be like, you know, don't hit him too hard. But you got thrashed with the belt, and it made you angry. And then I started to get a dislike for my father, and then I got a real hatred for him. And my family became the gangs in the street because it always accepted you, and there was always things going on, and you played football together, you were fighting rival gangs together. So in Newcastle, there was a lot of gangs, and the football team had a big gang. I don't think it's like that now, but they used to have this gang called the Big Market Bender Squad. But a bender isn't in the north, isn't what it is in the south, I think. a bender in the northeast is when you're on the drink all the weekend. Apparently, I later found out that it means other things, but I don't know nothing about them other things. But we were the big market bender squad because we're always on the drink, and we followed Newcastle all over the country, and fighting against Millwall. They were supposed to be the roughest team in the world, and we went down and chased them down the Old Kent Road, and all sorts of stuff going on, fighting with Man United. Sunderland took over the Fulwell end, and mass fights in the centre of Sunderland. And well, to us it wasn't like evil, it was just a bit of frisk. It was just like, well, we're Newcastle, you're Sunderland, we don't like you, so we're going to fight with you. We're not going to murder you, we're nearly going to murder you, but not properly murder. We'll just give you a good kicking, good reminder who's in charge around here. And so I got addicted to drugs, I got addicted to cocaine, I was a womanizer, I was getting thrown out of nightclubs and climbing up on the roof and trying to get back into the nightclub through the roof. Some of the things, when people heard stories about me, they used to look round in the bar and say, this can't be true. And they used to go, oh, it's worse, you haven't heard half of it yet. And I ended up in a mental hospital, I escaped from the mental hospital, I ended up in 7 prisons. So if you've got somebody that you're praying for and the devil's telling you that this person could never get saved, just remind them that people like me got saved. And I was worse than your average Joe. And one of the things that helped me to get saved was none of my family were Christians, but my mother's sister in Inverness and her husband were both Baptists, and they were praying for me every day. And then when they heard I was in prison, they were praying twice a day. And so the crazy things that I saw and went through, it was actually a miracle that I was still alive to get saved. But I got to the age of 30, and apparently it's an age where, for some reason, it's like midlife. You're not a kid anymore, but you're not an old man yet. You're sort of in the middle, and you've got some experience of life, and you're wondering, well, how is my life going to pan out in the future? That people start thinking about their life. So I started thinking about my life, and I thought, I'm going to have to change. I can't keep living like this and getting away with it. Somebody's going to kill us, or I'm going to kill them, or something tragic's going to happen. And there was people that I grew up with. There was girls found dead in the River Tyne. There was people got shot dead. There was people got badly injured, and things were happening to people. People were dying prematurely, falling down the stairs and choking on their own vomit, and just terrible things happening to people. And you kind of looked at it and you thought, I'm in this minefield of craziness. I really need to think about what I'm doing. So I started reading books on psychology, which didn't really help. It just sort of showed us that I was worse than I thought. And then one day, right out of the blue, but in an answer to me auntie and uncle's prayers, I started thinking about like God, or the things of God as I could understand them. And I just said, well, if you're there, you'll know all about my carry on. I mean, I might try and hide it from the magistrate, but I'm not going to be able to hide it from you if you're really there. But if you're really there, I would like to change, but I don't know how to change, because I don't really have any friends who are on the straight and narrow to pal up with. All my friends are like me. And there was a story I told Ray last night, I thought it was hilarious. There was this guy, and his dad said, you need to stay away from Dougie March. He's a dangerous guy. He could have a real detrimental effect on your future. So stay away from him. But he goes, you're not that bad, Dougie. I'm around, Well, I ends up in prison, and I goes to the shop in the prison. You get your bits of wage, and you buy, if you're a smoker, you buy baccy and some sweets, and stamps or what have you. And I goes into the shop, and there's the guy. There's this guy whose dad's told him, stay away from me. And I goes, aye, aye. And he goes, aye, aye, Dougie. And I goes, oh, in the jail, eh? I better stay away from you, you know, my influence is for bad. And he goes, oh, this is not the worst of it. And he shouted, oi, who should come through? His dad. He was out with his dad for a meal, and an argument started over the bill, and they started fighting with the Chinese people in the restaurant. And the police came, and they both got sent to prison. So there's the dad and the son. And I says to the dad, you know, you need to stay away from that. I says, you don't need to stay away from that Dougie March. You're in here, and I've never even been around you. So it was just like, wow, we're living in a crazy world. So I started praying, and I just said, God, if you're real, like, do something. So most people in this room now know that he's a supernatural God, and he answers prayer. But very often people are doubtful of it. Well, it might happen to him, but it won't happen to me. And there's no reason why it shouldn't happen to everybody. Because he doesn't go, no, I can't answer yours. Bad guy, we'll answer yours. Gabriel, could you get sorted in there? That one, no, sorry, it's not there. I don't like you. He answers prayer. It's our unbelief that stops it from happening. So I'm walking up the main street in Newcastle, and at the time I was a street trader. We used to sell stuff on the streets, and we had toots like looking out for the police and then sell the stuff, you know, like get the money, get the beer money, and then off to the bar. And then just thinking about nothing in particular when there's two like girls standing in front of us, and I'm kind of like, oh, this is unusual. I said, oh, can I help you ladies? They said, would you like me to tell you about Jesus? And I said, yeah, you can tell us about anything you want. Now, if you look at the wisdom of God, if that had been two men and said, can we tell you about Jesus? I would have just slapped them. Are you trying to be funny? I'd slap the face off you. Where are these people coming from? But because it's two ladies, you're different. Oh, yes, you know. What would you... Shall we have the parables or, you know, Sermon on the Mount? You know? And so, like, after a while, I said, is this the long version or the short version? You know, it's nice, but, you know, but I can't stand here all day. Like, they said, oh, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm not going to tell. I'm selling stuff on the street. I said, oh, I've got a little business, you know, running a little business, and I've got to get to work. So I kept bumping into them. And one of the things about when you're addicted to cocaine, you're paranoid. It makes you paranoid. So you hear someone laughing, and you think they're laughing at you. You hear somebody's looking across the bar, and you think they're looking at you. And if they go, him over there, you think that it's you. And that's how a lot of fights start. People thinking that somebody is getting at them, and they're not. So I kept bumping into this girl, and I goes, are you following me around? She said, well, why would I want to follow you around? I said, well, you keep popping up, you know, all over. They're like, oh, hello, and oh, hello. And then I'm getting a bit, she said, oh, no, they're divine appointments. And I thought, that sounds painful, you know. And she goes, no, we've been talking to God about you. And I thought, oh, I've got them here. They seem to be the one in control, but I like that they've overstepped the mark now. So I said, oh, you have you? And what's God been saying? And she says, well, it's something to do with you and your dad. And I said, oh, me and my dad are like that. We're so close. She goes, well, that's not what Jesus has been saying. I said, well, what's he been saying? She said, something about anger and animosity. I said, well, we're not that close. We're sort of close-ish. And she said, well, that's not what Jesus is saying. I said, all right, I hate his guts. And I said, well, it's none of your business anyway. You're popping up and speaking, you know, what's going on here? And then the thought came, you said a prayer. You asked this, you know, and I was like, oh, all right. And then she goes, there's something about love. You're looking for love. And I pulled this little black book out of my back pocket, and I said, look at all them phone numbers. And she goes, that's not lust. That's not love. I said, what is it? She said, it's lust. I said, yeah, I've got to agree with you there. Yeah, I am looking for love. And I was like, goodness me, what's good? I'm out of my depth here. I'm not in control. I'm normally the one calling the shots. And this lassie sort of reading my mind. So she goes, would you like to come along to church and just have a little look, and I thought, I said, yeah, I'll have one look. I said, but if I'm in the meeting and it's boring, if there's priests walking around swinging incense and curtains and loud organs and that and boring looking people, I'm going to like sneak out. I'm going to go out backwards, waving and I'm going to be like, I've got to get out, so I need to sit near the door. So she said, yeah, well, you can, we'll sit near the door if you want. When I went in, it was a bit like this. It was Pentecostal. Jackie wasn't there singing, but it was Pentecostal, and there was, you're there, sorry, Jackie. There was guitars, and there was drums, and people were chilled out, and I thought, goodness me, these people look like they want to be here, because when I went to Sunday school, as a little kid, you couldn't wait to get home, to get out of it, but these people looked like they were enjoying it. So I kind of listened, and it was kind of like, all right. And then the girl said, oh, next week I can't make it. If you want to come, you'll have to come on your own. So I went on my own, and the guy was preaching the gospel. And it seemed that the things he was saying were like about me. So being paranoid, I thought, yeah, that girl's went to the pastor and she said, there's a guy coming called Dougie. Doesn't get on with his dad. He's very violent. He's very angry. He's looking for love, So if you stick that in the sermon, you'll think that God said that, and it might help him. But it doesn't work like that. So there might be even things that I've said, and you're like saying, does Dougie know anything about me? How come that's been said? Because that's me. But obviously, it's God who knows He knows our hearts. So, at the end of the service, and I'm hearing the gospel, I'm hearing about Jesus dying on the cross, which everybody knows, but a lot of people don't know why. He died on the cross because he took the punishment for all the sin of the world. So the preacher says, hey, he paid the price for your sin, all the violence, all the anger, all the prison, all of the immorality, everything that you've done wrong. He got the blame, and you can get off scot-free if you repent, and you can become a Christian, you can become a child of God, and start a brand new life. And I thought, that's what I really want. I want a new start. I want to put the past behind. And so I went forward in front of 600 people, and I repented of my sin. I said sorry to God. In the Holy Spirit of God, I believed that Jesus was God, that he died on the cross for all the sin of the world, and he died for my sin. I said, I want to become a Christian. I want to be baptized by full immersion in water. I want to follow Jesus. So they prayed with us, and I walked out of the church down towards the football ground, which was not far away. And I looked up at the ground, and there was this voice on the inside, or like an impression. And it's kind of, the impression that I got was, they used to be your God, the football team. I'm your God now. And I just got this revelation that I won't be going to these matches anymore and fighting. I might even not be part of the gang anymore. Things are going to be different. So I rang the gang up. And I was like, all right, Dougie, we're all going down, whoever they were playing. There's going to be a proper fight this weekend. We're all there. We've got weapons in the van. We're going to be there. Our heads will be shaved. Some of the guys have got new tattoos on, and you're going to be right in the midst of it. And I said, I've got some bad news. I won't be able to make it. I said, why not? I said, he says, come on, Dougie, out with it. You got a new girlfriend. You've done a robbery and you've got loads of money. Come on, what you done? What have you been up to? And I thought, I don't know how this is going to go. I said, I've become a Christian. So the person starts laughing. He goes, he's become a Christian. And you hear all the laughter in the background. He said, you have got some sense of humour. Look, what's happening? Are you short of drugs? Do you want some freebies? He just passed it by. And I thought, no. So I stopped going to these places. I didn't stop everything. I was still having a few sherbets through the day, but the girlfriends thing stopped. The violence stopped. Taking the drugs stopped. The violence, I was still having a few sherbets. But loads of things that I used to do, I just didn't want to do them anymore. Something had happened, and I wasn't the same person. So the gang found out, and then I started preaching in the city centre. The gang found out, and then they said, they had this meeting, like elders meeting in a pub. And one of them says, what's the agenda today? Dougie March. Okay. Get the drinks in, and we'll have another slurp, and then we're going to have to do something about him. We're going to have to get him back. So they didn't print leaflets like Ray did, but they said, one of them says, I'll have a word with him. So one of them came to see us, and he goes, well, the gang was just talking about you, we've fought together, we've been in jail together, we've known each other for years, and, we were a little bit upset that you've left the gang. We can't get our head round it. We don't think you're mentally ill, because you've always been mentally ill, but we've decided to take you on a little trip, because we believe you don't have to be a Christian to be kind to people. I said, oh, that's kind of yes, but there's part of us saying, what's the punchline? I said, well, where do you want to take us? They said, Amsterdam. And I said, Amsterdam? You're joking? I know what you would be up to in Amsterdam. They said, well, you don't have to participate, Dougie. Let's just be together, the lads. So I thought, right, I'll come, but this is the last supper, if that's the right analogy. So we get on this boat, and we're sailing across the channel towards Amsterdam. And what they do is they get on the boat, and they take over the bar. They scare all the blokes off, and they buy drinks for all the women. And they're kind of like, right, we're in charge here. The Geordies are on the boat. And I'm supposed to be in the midst of it. So I was like, Dougie, we're in control here. Look, there's the girls and the guys have all went there. We're in charge. And I was like, well, I'm not interested. I don't want to be in charge. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to walk around the boat. So I had me tracked. By then I had this testimony tracked. So I saw this lady on her own, and I went, okay there. She said, have you heard that lot in there? I said, oh, it's disgraceful, isn't it, And she said, I said, I've come out for some fresh air. I like the wind blowing in my face, I'm trying to act like non-violent and non what I used to be. And she goes, oh, you seem quite a nice guy and all. And we're chatting, and I said, well, I've got a bit of a checkered past. And she said, oh, really? And I said, well, sort of checkered. And I pulls the leaflet out, and she starts reading it. She says, this is very checkered. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm a Christian now. And then one of the lads comes out the bar, and he's like, I found him, talking to some woman. What's happening here? She said, this lovely gentleman, he used to be a football hooligan, and he used to be a cocaine and that, and now he's following Jesus. And he went, oh, no, come on, Dougie. We're having a party by him. Oh, no. Oh, I'm not having this. So he gets his shirt, and he rips it open in front of the woman and goes, ah! She goes running off, and he goes, oh, you lost that convert. He says, oh, I come and sit in the bar. And I said, I'm not into it, man. I'm telling you, we get to Amsterdam, there was all different things going on, which I couldn't repeat them, not in a million years. But anyway, got back alive. But the boat that we were on was called the Herald of Free Enterprise. And I don't know if you know the story about that, but about a week later that we were on the boat, the Herald of Free Enterprise was leaving Zeebrugge. And, if you leave the back door open in your house, the cat might get out, or a cat might get in. But they left the gate open that goes down for the cars to drive up. So the boat went out of the harbour with the gate down, so the English Channel started to get into the boat. And a lot of people died and lost their lives. So they found out about it, and they said, Dougie, you know the boat we were on? I said, yes. They said, somebody left the back doors open and there's a lot of people died. Do you think that God wasn't very pleased and he's sunk that boat? And I said, well, God wasn't very pleased what you were up to, but he doesn't go around sinking boats. He's come to seek and save those who are lost. And I said, oh, I don't know. Dougie, maybe you need to make some Christian mates because we can't get our head around what you've done. And they couldn't. So the Lord called us to preach the gospel. So I started preaching in my hometown. And since that day, the Lord sent us to 47 countries around the world. So I do get people who tell us that Christianity is boring. And I say, well, so what's exciting about your life? And then I tell them the countries that I've been to. You know, Australia, New Zealand, all over America, Mexico, Canada, Guyana in South America, 5 countries in Africa, all over the Mediterranean, Spain, France, Italy, Cyprus, Finland, all over the UK, Sri Lanka. And the Lord's just sent us around the world, and I've seen God doing amazing things, and he's like he's a God of love. And when we were in Sri Lanka, I wanted to go up this mountain called Adam's Peak, and it's quite high. You have to be fit to get to the top of it. We got to the top of it. There was a Buddhist temple at the top, and I said, I want to be in that Buddhist temple because we're not at the top. And one of the local guys says, well, you can't get in there. They're not going to let you in. I went, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command this gates to open and somebody to let me in. And we're like that for a few minutes. Then you heard, and then a guy came out and he went, you want to come in and see the inside? I said, yes, I do. And the guy looked at us and I went, the Lord, he's a God who opens doors that no man can close. We went in, we were at the top of this mountain, praying in tongues for an hour, praying and praying. Little did we know that the tsunamis was on the way. You know that tsunamis? So we got back, and then 10 days after we got back, the tsunamis hit the island. The hotel that we were staying in was washed away. A train that I had been traveling on, when the water came in, this train was traveling along. It lifted it up higher than the coconut trees, and one guy got thrown out the window, grabbed a hold of the top of the coconut tree, and he was the only survivor. And then the guy who I went with, Davy Falkis, rang us up and said, have you heard the news? He said, yeah. He said, that could have been us. So the Lord not only used him in Sri Lanka, but saved him from it tsunamis. And all around the world there's been complete adventures. I had an amazing time in Guyana in South America. I had difficulty getting in, so I knew it was going to be good. I had this passport, and I just used to stick the boarding card into the passport with a bit of sellotape. A bit of sellotape in a circle on the passport, and then the boarding card or whatever stuck onto it. But eventually when you took it off, it left a hole in the passport. So when I'm going into Guyana, they saw this, she's flicking through and she sees the hole. And she's like, look, and I said, that's a hole. She said, a hole? Oh, I'm not happy with this hole. I said, well, just, pretend it's not there, just, can I get in? And she goes, oh, no, and she was they were looking for a bribe. So she goes, after a while, she goes, I'm going to have to go to a higher authority. I said, I've got a higher authority than your higher authority. She said, who is it? I said, Jesus Christ. She says, no, the supervisor in the airport's the highest authority. I said, no, Jesus is above her. She said, right. I said, go and get her. I said, Lord, can you, turn this situation on? Because I've been there for an hour trying to get into the country. So the supervisor comes and she goes, that is a hole. And the supervisor goes, I know it's a hole. I'm not stupid. How did it get there? I said, it ripped on a little bit of sellotape. I said, but there's no problem. And she goes, well, I don't know. And I goes, Jesus, could you have a word with this woman? And then she goes, okay, I'm going to let you in, but we're not sure if we'll let you out. I said, don't worry, but darling. I said, as long as I get in, getting out, another story. Got in, and we're doing crusades around Georgetown and different parts of Guyana. It's covered in jungle. It's got as much jungle as places in the Amazon. And it's got indigenous tribes up the river that flow into it. And when you fly into it, it's absolutely green as anything. All of the conurbations in the towns are like at the coast. So they said, we're wanting you to do a crusade in a place called Rassville, because they're all Rastafarians and there's never ever been a church there. And we thought it would be a good place for it to have a crusade. So they built this platform, and I was the speaker, and they had really loud speakers. So starts preaching and that, and they're all in the bars. So I did an altar call, and our lot were like around the bars praying, and people started coming out of the bars, coming up to the front of the stand and giving their hearts to the Lord. So we saw people saved in Rassville, and they've now got a church there in Rassville that they never had before. It was a miracle of God what He did. And the last time I was talking to them, they were on about, but it never happened, was to go to the next town after Rassville where they don't have a church. So a lot of people saved. And when I was coming out, and there was this little guy checking my passport, and he turns to that page with a hole in, and he goes, "Oh, what have we here?" And I went, "Oh, in the name of Jesus, give me that passport." He went, "What you doing?" I said, I've had too much carry on trying to get in, and just God bless you, have a nice day, I'm getting on the plane." And I just got onto the plane, and he was so shocked that I spoke to him like that. "You just left us?" I thought, that's all I need, an hour standing time with a hole in the passport when I should be on the plane. So I got in and I got out. When I was in Africa, I called it Planet Africa. It's just a completely different ball game. But the people understand sin. The first African I spoke to, I was in this house, in this pastor's house, and this guy come riding by on a bike, and he said, "Hello there, Mzungu." They call a white man a Mzungu. "Hello, Mzungu." I said, "Hello there, my friend. How are you doing?" He goes, "Okay." He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing a crusade down in the town." I said, "What about you? Are you a Christian?" And he looked at the floor. I said, "What's wrong?" He goes, "I like my sin." I said, "You like your sin?" He said, "Yes." And he was like ashamed. He said, "Yeah, I like my sin." I said, "Well, that's all right. I used to like my sin." I said, "But I'm doing a crusade. Come to it, and the Lord might save you." They've got an awareness of what sin is. And I saw literally over 1,000 people saved in 5 months. I stopped counting them because I thought, people are not going to believe you. They're going to think it's telephone numbers, you know. But I preached the gospel in some very funny places. This guy came to us, an evangelist, and he said, "Dougie, I need a favor." So in Africa, you have to ask what the favor is. You don't say yes straight away. And he said, "Well, it's me mother." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "She's running a brothel." I went, "Yes." So I started thinking of my mother at the bingo, and his mother running a brothel. So I goes, "And yes." And he goes, "Well, I was wondering we could go there, we could take the gospel." I said, "Yeah, but does she want us to?" He says, "Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Let's sally forth to the brothel, Dougie." And I says, "Well, I'm going to have to watch what I write on the postcards." You know, because I was writing postcards back, and I thought of it, just had a bit of brothel ministry. No, went down the brothel today. You know, and if you don't get it right, they get in the postcard. "Oh no, Dougie's in the darkest of Africa. He started to go into the brothel. Look, he's in brothel ministry. Oh Lord, we sent him out there. We funded him, and now he's in the brothel. Look, it's on the postcard." So I thought, I'm not going to be careful. So I thought, okay. And I'm like, "All right, Lord, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound." So we get along to this house of ill repute, and there's loads of these men drinking this white hooch. And then he introduces us to Mama, and she comes over and nearly strangles us, you know. "Oh, lovely to meet you, Evangelist Dougie." Like, "Thank you." So I didn't know what to say to her because I've never used these places before. So I kind of said, "Hi, yeah, how's business?" She goes, "It's pretty good." No, I didn't mean that. I mean, I don't know what to say. So she goes, "And what do we owe the pleasure of this visit?" And the guy goes, well, you know, me and Dougie were just talking, and I thought it would be really good if we brought the gospel here. And I was kind of like, well, what response are we going to get? And she goes, yes, you know, we need Jesus, we need help. Oh, goodness me. Looks at me and goes, I'm sorry. And I said, oh, it's okay, you know, don't apologise to me. So she shouts, we have an evangelist in here from England, Evangelist Dougie March. He's going to proceed to preach the gospel. And the guys with the white hoods went, what? They all ran out. And then the evangelist Summer said, well, we soon got rid of them. So they were away. And then the girls started coming out the rooms and all sat down and they're all there. And then Evangelist Summer says, you may proceed. So I'm like, Lord, you get me in some funny places. So I gives me testimony, preaches the gospel. And you could hear people crying, you know, sitting from amongst the girls. And then the mama gets up, kind of comes to the front, gets down on her knees, and right underneath me and goes, can Jesus forgive a sinner like me? And I was like, oh, yeah, he forgives anyone who, like, repents. Prayed with her, and then some of the girls came, and she gave her life to the Lord. So when I got back, I had actually been, funny enough, living in Reading, and staying at a pastor's house, Pastor Mike Adeyemi, a Nigerian pastor, and a letter came through the door, and on the back it was Evangelist Sama, and I went, oh, look, this was when I got back, like after being away for 5 months. I opened it up and he says, dear Dougie, my mother has shut down the brothel. She has, God has given her a job selling fruits, and she's going from village to village telling people about Jesus. She's telling the people that God sent Jesus from heaven, and God sent a man from England all the way to where she was to tell her about the love of God, and that's now her duty to tell other people when she's selling the fruits. And I went, oh, Jesus. Because, I mean, it's not that you doubt it, but you often wonder, well, what's happening now? And to me, that was like a confirmation that it was a real thing that happened. So, you know, and loads of stories. But one of the most amazing ones was when I was in Kenya. We're on the way to a meeting, and I saw this crowd. Well, with me being a street trader, I thought, well, in England it'll be 10 for a pound, it'll be 50 for a pound in Africa, you know. Get a few presents, and I've been a tight Geordie. So I pushed us through the crowd, and there's this guy lying like at the side of the road, and I said, well, what's happened to the guy? And they said, oh, he's drank poison, he's dead, he's been there for 2 hours. I said, dead? And I kind of like looked at him, and I was like, goodness me, what a place to die. And I'm just kind of like there, and then just the compassion of Jesus came over us. So I got down and put my hand on his head and started praying. You shall not die but live and declare the works of the Lord. Command your spirit to come back into your body. Prayed in tongues. And I couldn't think of anything else. And then there was this big, massive crowd around us, completely circling us. And the newspapers were taking photos, and the radio was there doing an outside broadcast. And prayed, and then I kind of like got up, and I was just about to like apologize, like say, give it me best prayer. When the guy sat up, I went, whoa! And the woman with the microphone went, whoa! He's come back to life. Live on Radio Kampala. And I am here right on the scene. And we've got the guy here, and he's a Mzungu, and we're here, and this is I'm the first person to tell this story, and the newspapers were taking photos. And then, from the back of the crowd, you heard, Dougie, where are you? We're going to be late for the meeting. The meeting? So I push us through, and he goes, Dougie, you're timekeeping. I'm surprised. You're normally on time. I said, no, don't make excuses, Dougie. There's this guy. She said, the meeting, man. Can you not get your priorities right? But there's this guy. He said, I'm not interested in the guy. I'm interested in the meeting. I said, well, okay, then let's go to the meeting. So goes to the meeting. About 3 days later, this little guy goes, Mr. Dougie, you're in the paper. I went, oh, no, what have I done now? And there was me praying for the guy, and it was an article. And I thought, I better take this back because people are not going to believe this. 1 minute you're like, don't mention the brothel ministry. Now it's people getting raised from the dead, and they're going to be thinking he's had a touch of the sun. So I rips it out, And I looks through the hole and gives him a few shekels, you know. And I thought, well, I'll take this back as kind of evidence. Isn't it strange? You've got to bring evidence back, because some of the things that God does are so amazing that people just could never get their heads around it. And time after time, there was this, even a church in a slaughterhouse. So somebody comes up and goes, Dougie, I goes, yes. He goes, another speaking engagement. I goes, where would this one be? Because some of them were speak at a funeral, speak here, speak there. He goes, they have a fellowship in the slaughterhouse. I said, yeah, well, they would do, wouldn't they? They've got them everywhere, you know. You can't go anywhere where there's not a church. And I goes, yeah, Slaughterhouse Christian Fellowship. You know, them white cows with the big long horns. He goes, yeah, it's like a Slaughterhouse Christian Fellowship. I said, yeah, I thought it would be. And he said, before the slaughter of the animals, they have like a fellowship. It would be good if you shared. And I said, yeah, well, of course. You know, like I've never shared in a slaughterhouse before. It's just, you know, I said, the new one, Lord, you know, you're quite original. Brothels and raised from the dead, now the slaughterhouse. So we goes into this room, and then through the corrugated iron, you could see people like looking through the holes. And I said, who are them? They said, oh, they're the unbelievers. I said, round them up. So normally they round the cows up, but now they're rounding the people up. So they round them up, and they come in like the cattle, and they all get a seat. And then he goes, now Dougie will proceed. So we'll go again. Preaches the gospel, gives me testimony, people crying again. Somebody comes to the front, and 30 people give their life to the Lord, who were kind of non-Christians who would have just went on with the slaughter, and obviously the people followed them up. And it was just the time in Africa in 5 months. It was like that, things like that, thing after thing after thing. God just absolutely amazing. But we were praying and fasting, we were committed, we were studying the word, we were trying to be servants. But so this guy, the ex-football hooligan, the ex-person who's going to be nothing in the world, God takes a hold of him and uses him for his glory, which he can do with you. He can do with the people who you don't think would ever become a Christian. And sometimes, you know, we're like the older brother and the prodigal son, that we can despise people. Oh, look at you, drug dealer or drug addict, or look at you, a prostitute, or look at you, you know, doing something horrible, when really we should have compassion on them and pray for them. They need help because they're on the way to hell, and we should be thankful not for what God's done for us, so that we want to do something for other people, because look what God's done for us. So I believe there's people in this room, some of your ministries haven't even started yet. Because maybe you've lived your life up to this point, but God would like say to you, look, I've got something for you that you've never even dreamed of. But you have to take time to listen to what he's going to say to you about it. And I don't know what it could be. It could be anything. But I know that God's like that. He doesn't just let people waste away and then die. He's a God of refreshment and newness. And so as I'm looking out, you know, I feel that there's some people, and you're not asking God because you want to sort of move towards retirement and just, you know, water the geraniums and walk the dog and just potter around, you know, and do a little bit of painting and that, and just hang on till Jesus comes back. But that's not what God's got for you. He's got something where your life can be used and you can be fulfilled. So the people like want to know you, like, whoa, that guy over there, I've never met anyone like him, and they're bringing friends to you. Oh, I just wanted to introduce, you know, so-and-so to you. I've told them about you, my neighbour, and, you know, and people get attracted to you. People want to be around you rather than, well, live my little selfish lives and, you know, our little petty lives, judging people and that, and smiling at people from the back of it, you know, when really we don't really care about them. We're dismissing them. And Jesus always moved towards sinners. And look at the father and the prodigal son, you know, looking out the window for his son coming back. And there's lots of prodigals out there. I believe if all the backsliders came back, the churches would be full. And like I said this morning, some of them have said, oh, I've stopped going to church because somebody upset us. But it could be just, they don't go to church because they're bored, but it's because they're not in the spirit. They're kind of living in the flesh. They're not trying to follow God. And like it is fairly easy, just like a coal that falls out of a fire can easily just go cold. It's easy for our hearts to grow cold. We've got to keep working at it. A garden, if you leave a garden, like the two neighbours next to me, my garden's, without boasting, it's quite a nice garden. And theirs are just like the stones, and that they want it simple. But the weeds aren't happy with that. The weeds want to grow. So they'll level it all off, and then they're kind of like, oh, looking quite nice. Before you know, you see a little weed here and a little weed there. Before you know it is, the whole garden's covered in weeds. So next time you see the person, you look over the fence and they're like, Dougie, remember when I did that? These weeds never give up. I said, no, they don't. They want to grow. They're weeds. And our hearts will grow over and grow. We need tended. We need to be prayerful people. We need to be discerning. We're in a fight. And one of the greatest pleasures in the whole world is seeing other people saved. And pleasing Jesus. We want to please him. One day we're going to stand in front of him, and it's going to be an amazing time. So I don't know who's Christians in here and who's not. You might have came just because you've been invited, or you might be curious. But if you're not sure if you're a Christian, you might not be. Like I say to people, if I hit you over the head with a hammer, would you know about it? And they're like, oh yeah, I would have a big egg on my head. Well, if Jesus Christ's in your heart, you're going to know about it. It's not like, oh, well, I'm not sure. Sometimes I feel like I'm a Christian, other times I feel like I'm not. You either are or you're not. And if the Holy Spirit is inside you, it's the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead for things to happen. But you've got to work. What he puts in, you've got to work out. You don't just sit like a wallflower and, turn into Mrs. Wonderful. You've got to work it. It's got to be nurtured. So I'm going to say a prayer. And if anybody wants to become a Christian and give their life to Jesus, the adventure of you following Jesus can start tonight. And so I'm going to give you that opportunity. And then also at the end, if people want prayer for healing because you're sick or you've got some kind of infirmity that you want us to pray, we can pray that. Or if I've said something and you feel, I feel God speaking to me about that area, well, I can stand with you and agree with you on that point. And we've got like a few different people who are available to pray with you. We've got some women, if you're a woman and you want a woman to pray with you. And just let God come and touch you and minister to you, because he wants to do you good. You don't want to miss it. Well, life's short. Before you know where you are, if you're saved and following Jesus, you're on the way to glory. But think about it. He says to some people, they said, we've done miracles, we've done this, we've done that. And Jesus said, I never knew you. You know why? Because they weren't praying. They just went to the meeting, 605 meetings. Next week will be 606 meetings that I'll have been to. And done that, fed the cat, smile at me neighbours. But you're not talking to Jesus. You're not living like a believer. So on Judgment Day, he's like, well, I don't know you. Well, you must know us. I went to the church and I did some good things. I read the Bible, once a month. And you're like, no, sorry, you're not getting in. And you don't want that to be you. You certainly, the people who, people like Peter Sutcliffe, if he didn't repent, he's going to be in hell forever, but he's probably going to say, well, I deserve it. But people who've went to church all their life, ending up in hell, they're going to be the unhappy ones. And there won't be any excuses. Jesus will just say, well, I never knew you. You didn't have a desire for me. I was just like part of your little list that you had in the kitchen. Must pray, must clean the cooker, must be nice to people. And it's just thin, and it's not real. And so non-Christians can see it. When people like that are like non-Christians, the non-Christians are looking, thinking, I can see straight through you. There's no love there. But on the other hand, if you've got love and you care for people, a non-Christian can see it. They pick up on it and they're kind of like, this is the real thing. So they'll move towards you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pray. And if you want to give your life to Jesus, you know, you can. You can come here and we'll pray with you. And then after that, if you want prayer because you've got some kind of sickness, or if there's anything that you just want me to pray, there's a number of people going to pray for you. I think we're going to have some music in the background, playing in the background. And, you know, be encouraged. You know, I think this COVID thing has made things a bit heavy, a bit like messy, and it's up to us to press through to what God's got, because we don't want that messiness around our lives. I call it the C word. You know, don't mention the C word, you know. It used to be the B word, but it's the C word now. Don't want to talk about it, you know. I want to talk about freedom and liberty and walking in the mountains and preaching the gospel and loving people and writing to people in prison and life. I don't want to hear about, you know, we've heard it all. It's on the radio every day. You're like, oh, not that again. You know, let's leave it behind and let's get into what God's got for us, because Jesus is a wonderful Savior. He's a wonderful God. The Holy Spirit is totally amazing. And you don't want to be shuffling through your life. You want to be skipping and dancing and enjoying. You're like, why is that person so happy? The non-Christians up and go, oh, he makes me sick, you know. You know, he's so happy. But really what he's saying is, I wish I had it. Because I've got to take drugs to get anywhere near that, or 20 pints or something to get it anywhere near that. But he doesn't wake up with a hangover. He just wakes up the next morning and goes, more, Lord. Give us more so that I can give. So if you want to close your eyes and relax, I'm just going to say a prayer. But even though you pray it, I mean, a Christian has to be someone who is living for Jesus on a daily basis, not just somebody who said a prayer, but it's like a doorway, it's like a gateway into the kingdom. So if you can pray this to Jesus, Lord Jesus, I believe in my heart that you're the Son of God, that you died on the cross for my sin. I ask you to come into my heart and forgive us. I ask you to come into my heart and heal us. I ask you to come and bring your Holy Spirit into my heart. Jesus, I want to be a disciple, and I want to follow you, and I want to love people with your love, and I want a brand new start, and I want the power over sin, and I want to go all the way to heaven and be with you for eternity. And I'm asking you, Jesus, to do it now. So when you've all got your eyes closed, if anybody prayed that prayer, I want you to put your hand up so I can see it and pray for you while nobody's looking around. You prayed that prayer, you want Jesus to come into your heart, put your hand up so I can see it. Okay, I'm not going to pursue it, but if you have done and you felt a bit, intimidated or what have you, just come and talk to us at the end. So if we want to play some music, and if you want prayer for anything, just come to the front, and I'm going to pass back to Dion.